stars are right, and that means it's time for another episode of The Whisper in Darkness. I'm your host, the manfromleng. Thank you very much for joining me today. On this episode, I am reviewing the Mystic cards from Before the Black Throne, the 6th and final Mythos pack in the Circle Undone cycle. There are spoilers throughout if you care about that sort of thing. If you enjoy what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Before we get started, I'd like to thank the patrons of this channel for their tremendous support. The Arkham Horror LCG community is an amazing bunch, and these people have gone above and beyond to bring you content like these reviews, as well as my playthroughs and previews. If you'd like to become a patron to support the channel's goals and see your name in lights, follow the link down below, sign up for the tier of your choice, and claim your rewards. That would be awesome. Without further ado, let's get started. The first Mystic card in the pack is the level 4 version of Wither. It's a 2-cost asset that will set you back 4 experience points. It has 2 combat skill icons and the spell trait. You may take an action to fight. This attack uses willpower instead of combat. You get +2 willpower for this attack. If a Skull, Cultist Tablet, or Elder Thing symbol is revealed during this attack, that attacked enemy gets -1 fight, -1 health, and -1 evade for the remainder of the turn to a minimum of 1. Wither takes up an arcane slot. Wither Zero didn't make a very good first impression on me when it was released in the Wages of Sin, but I quickly warmed up to it because it's a useful combat tool in a class lacking useful combat tools at level 0. I've had a chance to play Wither Zero since my initial review in a Marie Lambeau deck, and it's performed pretty much as I expected. Wither's price is right at 2 resources, and fighting with willpower rather than combat is amazing. Unlike its core set counterpart to Shriveling, Wither won't run out of charges or come back to bite you in the ass if you pull a Skull, Cultist Tablet, or Elder Thing token from the Chaos bag. Giving an enemy -1 fight and -1 evade if you draw a special Chaos token is helpful, but triggering it consistently is difficult unless you play Wither in combination with some sort of Chaos bag manipulation, such as Grotesque Statue from the core set, Dark Prophecy from the Forgotten Age, or Olive McBride from Heart of the Elders. Wither also synergizes nicely with Eldritch Inspiration, a Mystic event from the Circle Undone that lets you trigger its ability an additional time, although I haven't tested that combination myself. Unfortunately, Wither also has some glaring problems, notably the lack of skill and damage bonuses. Shriveling definitely has the edge here, especially against enemies with a lot of health. Wither Zero is better than nothing in a pinch, but it will take quite a few actions to chew through an enemy with more than 1 health, and the lack of skill and damage bonuses can make Wither a disastrous choice against a boss such as the Ghoul Priest, who has a relatively high fight value as well as the Retaliate keyword. Wither seemed like the perfect candidate for an upgrade, so I'm not surprised to find Wither 4 in Before the Black Throne. For those 4 experience points, you get an additional combat skill icon and +2 willpower for the attack. If you draw a Skull, Cultist Tablet, or Elder Thing Chaos token during the fight action, the enemy gets -1 health in addition to the -1 fight and -1 evade for the remainder of the turn. Again, the health reduction is going to be woefully inconsistent unless you've got some way to dial up the appropriate skill icon, but it does give you a chance to take down a 2 health enemy in one action. If you throw an Eldritch Inspiration into the mix with Wither and a little Chaos Bag manipulation, then you can take down a 3 health enemy in one action too. You could even stack that Eldritch Inspiration on Diana Esperance from In the Clutches of Chaos to make the most of that combination. Wither Zero is a decent option for Mystics because, frankly, they don't have that many good options at that level. Wither 4, on the other hand, faces plenty of competition from other upgrades and purchases. In addition to Shriveling 3 and Shriveling 5, Mystics can pick up Song of the Dead 2 from the Miskatonic Museum, or Shards of the Void 3 from Shattered Aeons. All of these cards enter play with a limited number of charges, but if raw damage is all that you're after, Shriveling 3 and Shriveling 5, as well as Shards of the Void 3, will be much more consistent and require much less support than Wither 4. If you're going the traditional upgrade path, Withering is cheaper to upgrade than Shriveling. However, if you're playing 2 copies of Arcane Research from Threads of Fate, the opposite is true. Upgrading 2 copies of Shriveling 0 to Shriveling 3 costs a total of 2 experience points, while upgrading 2 copies of Shriveling 3 to Shriveling 5 is free. Upgrading Wither to Wither 4, on the other hand, costs 4 experience. Now, it will take you 4 scenarios to upgrade to Shriveling 5 versus 2 for Wither 4, but 2 XP is significant. So if experience points are tight, you may want to consider Shriveling instead. I'm happy that Wither received an upgrade in this cycle, but I think my expectations for that upgrade may have been a bit too high. I think Wither 4 simply costs too many experience points for what you get. Basically, you're spending 4 experience points on a card that doesn't require charges and grants you +2 willpower during a fight action. The lack of an innate damage bonus means taking down an enemy with more than 1 health is going to be very labor intensive. Wither 4 improves if you pull a special token, but those effects are going to be inconsistent unless you're playing a bunch of other cards to rig the Chaos Bag in your favor. Now, if you're already playing those cards, Wither 4 may be worth a look. If you're not playing those cards and deck space is tight, then you're probably better off looking to other upgrades or purchases that will deal out much more consistent damage than Wither 4 will. The second Mystic card in the pack is the level 4 version of Sixth Sense. It's a 3-cost asset that costs 4 experience points. It has 2 intellect skill icons and the spell trait. You may take an action to investigate using willpower instead of intellect. You get +2 willpower for this investigation. If a Skull Cultist tablet or Elder Thing symbol is revealed during this test, you may choose a revealed location up to 2 connections away from your current location. You are now investigating as if you were at the chosen location in addition to your location. You may use either shroud value. Sixth Sense 0 was a game changer for Mystics and off-class Mystics. Before it entered the card pool, Mystics and off-class Mystics basically had 3 options. First, they could rely on their base intellect skill values, most of which are average to below average. In terms of planning, it doesn't get much worse than making a lot of intellect skill checks at bad odds. Second, they could try to bolster their intellect using Alyssa Graham from Undimensioned and Unseen, or St. Hubert's key from Black Star's Rise. Getting Alyssa and or the key into play is time-consuming and expensive, since both assets cost 4 resources. That's a tough sell in a class with a lot of expensive assets. Third, they could wait until they drew their flashlight from the core set, or Rite of Seeking from the Dunwich Legacy. Rite of Seeking lets you discover an additional clue if your investigate action is successful, but it doesn't come cheap, and it only has 3 charges, so God forbid you blow a skill test and you have to go back to plan A. Speaking of failing skill tests, Rite of Seeking also immediately ends your turn if you pull one of the special tokens from the Chaos Bag. You can play around with this effect, but sometimes you simply have no choice and have to investigate on your first or second action. Sixth Sense cuts through all the BS and lets Mystics leverage their best skill, willpower, for the most important action in the game, investigating. The ability to simply pay 3 resources and investigate using willpower for the remainder of the game is fantastic. Mystics no longer need to worry about running out of batteries for their flashlights or charges for their Rite of Seeking, since Sixth Sense doesn't use either of them. You no longer have to worry about ending your turn early if you draw one of the special tokens while investigating with Rite of Seeking. In fact, drawing a special token while investigating with Sixth Sense 0 gives you the option to choose a revealed location connected to your location and investigate as if you were there instead. The value of this effect depends a lot on whether you're able to draw a special token from the Chaos Bag consistently, as well as the presence of revealed connecting locations with clues on them. You do get to choose which shroud value you use for the skill test, though, which is potentially valuable if you're trying to discover clues at a high shroud location. Rite of Seeking, I think, has the edge in multiplayer since it lets you discover multiple clues in one action, but in solo play, where there is rarely more than 1 or 2 clues at each location, Sixth Sense is a good option. Sixth Sense 4 gives the card a significant boost. For 4 experience points, you get an additional intellect skill icon and an additional +2 willpower during investigate actions. If you reveal a special token during the investigate action, you get to investigate at 2 locations at the same time. If you succeed, you discover a clue at both locations. Once again, you can use either shroud value during the skill test, so you can get into those hard to reach places without putting yourself at too much risk. You're not going to draw those special tokens consistently unless you combine Sixth Sense 4 with some sort of Chaos Bag manipulation, but I think this is less of a problem than it is with a card like Wither 4. If you're playing solo, most locations have 1, maybe 2 clues. Clearing a location will take 1 or 2 actions at most if the Chaos Bag cooperates. Many enemies, on the other hand, can have 3 or even 4 health, at which point you really need that extra damage to deal with them quickly. You couldn't play Sixth Sense Zero in combination with Eldritch Inspiration from the Circle Undone. Well, you could, but it wouldn't have any effect. That changes with Sixth Sense 4. If you draw a special token while investigating with Sixth Sense 4, you get to play Eldritch Inspiration to resolve the symbol's effects an additional time, which lets you investigate at 3 locations at once and potentially discover 3 clues in with 1 action. Eldritch Inspiration is a one-shot event, so if you want to abuse this trick, you may want to consider stacking a copy of it on Diana Esperance. Then you can discover multiple clues at multiple locations, multiple times per game. I was a big fan of Sixth Sense Zero, and I'm a big fan of Sixth Sense 4. If you're playing 2 copies of Arcane Research, you can upgrade both copies of Sixth Sense Zero for a total of 4 experience points, which is very reasonable. Sixth Sense 4 doesn't require charges, and it won't come back to bite you in the ass if you draw a special token. In fact, if you draw a special token during your investigate action, you may investigate at 2 locations at once, 3 if you trigger Eldritch Inspiration on top of that. Gathering 2 or 3 clues with one action is a very efficient way to do business. If you're playing solo and don't draw a special token, it's not a significant setback. If you're playing Sixth Sense 4 in multiplayer, you may want to include some sort of Chaos Bag manipulation to improve the odds of drawing a special token. Discovering 1 clue at a time is going to be very inefficient if there are 8 clues at 1 location, or you can simply opt for Rite of Seeking and gather multiple clues with 1 action. That's going to do it for my review of the Mystic cards in Before the Black Throne. Wither 4 is okay, I guess, but it feels as though it costs too many experience points for what you get. The lack of a consistent damage bonus really hurts this card. Mystics usually play Wither 0 because they have few good combat options. Their combat options grow by leaps and bounds once they gain a few experience points. Cards such as Shriveling 3 and Shards of the Void will pump out much more consistent damage, which you need when you're facing enemies with 3 or 4 health. Much like Wither 4, Sixth Sense 4 also benefits from playing it in combination with Chaos Bag manipulation to pull those special tokens consistently. However, if you're playing solo, failing to pull a special token isn't the end of the world since there are fewer clues on the table to worry about. If you're playing with 3 or 4 players, Rite of Seeking 4 is likely a better option to power through the mound of clues stacked on each location. That's going to do it for this review. If you enjoy what you hear, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you need to contact me, I can be reached at manfromleng@gmail.com. I'm also on Twitter at manfromleng. Until the stars are right, keep your shotgun close and your elder sign closer. Take care out there, and happy investigating.